So here we have the all-new Rosa Idol Chorus EPS. The Rosa is one of those historic Italian brands with a great reputation, which all started with Ugo de Rosa, who founded the company after spending many years building bikes for Eddie Merckx. And the Idol has been a staple of the de Rosa range for a couple of decades now. And when it originally debuted, it was a full-on race bike built in aluminium with all the traits that you'd expect, super stiff, aggressive, etc., etc. This latest generation, however, they've reposition the Idol into more of a kind of sportive endurance kind of category. By shifting it to that, then what they've basically done is they've made the front a little bit higher. The reach hasn't been reduced too much. I mean, this is a large 59.5 model. The reach is 402 millimeters, which is fairly long for an endurance bike. Stacks 597, which again isn't the tallest you'll see for that sort of category. So it still retains a lot of sporty traits. It's still a nice, fine handling, pretty swift machine. But I guess the real deal that most people will be interested with this bike is Chorus EPS. EPS is Campag's electronic drivetrain. It's sort of rarely seen on complete bikes. Shimano seem to have almost a monopoly when it comes to electronically equipped bikes available off the shelf. But after spending a fair bit of time riding this new Chorus EPS, we think EPS is a group set. You should ignore it at your peril. The electronic parts of this system just seem to sync so perfectly with the real high quality mechanical shifting that Campag's always been known for. The levers up on the front with the typical Campag layout of one lever and one thumb actuated trigger, as it were. The way they've brought that into the kind of electronic sphere, both have an absolute definite click, both have a real positive action, which when you put straight up against the i2, which can occasionally feel a little bit too electronic, a little bit too micro switchy. This still feels like every button moves, everything has an action. If you're coming straight from a mechanical system for the first time onto anything electronic, this at once feels really natural and really, really precise. It's like the operation of it just seems like the most perfectly set up mechanical bike you've ever ridden, and it never goes wrong, it never goes out, it never misshifts. It's a really, really nice piece of engineering. Obviously when EPS debuted, it debuted on their highest grade groups with Super Record and Record. Coming down to Chorus, you think there'd be some pretty big compromises, but when it pulls down to it, there isn't really that much. With both Record and Super Record, all you're really getting as a gain over this is a little bit more carbon, titanium carrier for the cassette, and titanium hardware throughout, which will save a few grams, make your pocket really a lot lighter. That carbon there's just to please people who prefer the aesthetics and to satiate the weight weenies around. We just think that Chorus EPS, you're getting 99% of the performance for 75% of the cost, and in our eyes that's a really good thing. As you can tell, the Idol itself and on the frame, it's got some really funky, interesting shapes going on. You've got this triangulated top tube with a gentle arc that actually goes from a triangle this way to a triangle this way, midway through it, which flows straight into that flat-plated bridge, super skinny stays, which again arc backwards. This is all to create a kind of top section that's built to allow a little bit of give, in perfect contrast to what's going on underneath, where you've got this super deep triangulated down tube, massive bottom bracket, and asymmetric chainstays as well. Get it out on the road and you do get a really nice sense of the power that's going through the pedals is being transmitted straight into the back wheel, but this bike just doesn't beat you up. This whole top section designed for that little bit of give, that little bit of compliance, really does a very, very good job. It's aided by simple things like the Fulcrum Quattro wheels. It's the LG version, so it's the wider rim, so we can be running a fatter tyre, a bit more air volume in there, a little bit more comfort. If there was anything we were going to criticise about this bike, and that's not much because we just love the way it rides, is there's a slight sort of mishmash approach to the way it's been spec'd. Up front you've got a really nice 3T ergonover bar matched to the Arx 2 Pro, but then you switch to the back, you've got a great Pro logo saddle and then an FSA SLK carbon post, which is it looks a bit mismatched, it's a bit odd. It comes from the fact that 3T haven't got a 31.6 carbon post in their range as of yet. And the only other thing that we'd probably criticise about this bike is it's aimed squarely at that endurance market. It's not quite geared the way that you'd expect. We've got a nice gear range on here, but it's one that is going to be pretty tough on bigger climbs, especially when you head out into Europe. Sitting out at the back, we've got a 1225. On this sort of bike, we'd really hope that we'd have something that went up to a 28. And that's compounded even more when you move up to the chain set, which is a Pro Compact 5236. If you're going to be spending long days in the mountains with lots and lots of ascent, then it's quite tall gearing. You've really got to be a pretty good climber to live with this all day. So this particular idle sits sort of mid to high end within the range. It's going to set you back £4,299, which is a fair chunk of cash to be spending. At that money, you could argue that a lighter set of wheels would be advantageous, and obviously the things we've said about the gearing, but when you boil it down to the heart of this bike, and that's the frame, you are buying that little bit of Italian exclusivity, which is an intangible, but it's quite important to some people.